Hello and welcome to Indus News, live from Islamabad. I'm Jawad Hami and these are the headlines. International watchdog Human Rights Watch says India has intensified its unwarranted restraints on the rights to free speech, access to information, healthcare and education in occupied Kashmir. It said New Delhi's claims of improving Kashmiri lives ring hollow 1 year after the revocation of occupied Valley's constitutional status. Meanwhile, Indian authorities have imposed a curfew in the Srinagar district amid planned protests by the locals to observe August 5 as Black Day. Prime Minister Imran Khan says Pakistan has played an important role in diffusing tensions between arch foes Saudi Arabia and Iran. In an interview, Khan said Pakistan prevented a military confrontation between the two regional powers. The Prime Minister said Islamabad's mediation between Tehran and Riyadh has not stopped and is making slow but meaningful progress. Israel has struck multiple Syrian military targets. The Defense Ministry says the raids were in retaliation for an earlier attempted IED attack near the security fence between Syria and Israel. No casualties have been reported so far. Latin America, the world's hardest hit region by COVID-19, has crossed 5 million cases with over 200,000 deaths. This comes as Brazil records 561 deaths and over 16,000 cases in the last 24 hours. In Pakistan, 15 more people have died, while 432 tested positive for the virus overnight, increasing the toll to over 280,000 confirmed cases. The global number of COVID-19 cases has crossed 18.1 million, with the death tally exceeding 691,000. The United Nations says North Korea is continuing with its nuclear weapons program. A UN's confidential report seen by Reuters says Pyongyang's past 6 nuclear tests have likely helped it to develop miniaturized nuclear devices. North Korea's mission to the UN has not responded to the claim yet. Those were the headlines and detailed stories. Right after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back, and now for the news in detail. Pakistan says India has failed to break the spirits of Kashmiris despite its oppression, arrests, brutalities, year-long lockdown and communication blackout. Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi says Kashmiris have completely rejected Indian actions of August the 5th last year. Speaking at an all-parties conference in connection with 1-year anniversary of India's illegal annexation and clampdown in Kashmir, Qureshi said with its actions in the valley, the Indian government has exposed its true fascist and extremist face. He said India is trying to change the demography of occupied valley through the controversial domicile law. Qureshi said the entire world is criticizing the Indian government's policies of hatred and discrimination. He assured Pakistan will continue supporting the just struggle of Kashmiris until the realization of their right to self-determination. International watchdog Human Rights Watch says India has intensified its unwarranted restraints on the rights to free speech, access to information, healthcare and education in occupied Kashmir. It said New Delhi's claims of improving Kashmiris' lives ring hollow 1 year after the revocation of occupied Valley's constitutional status. The HRW said several new arrests have been made and torture and ill treatment of innocent Kashmiris by occupying forces continues. The Rights Watch said New Delhi's curfew has affected livelihoods dependent on tourism and agriculture. The communication blackout has hampered students' access to online classes and doctors' access to new research. HRW has urged New Delhi to stop violating Kashmiri's right, release detainees and hold officials responsible for rights violations. The Indian authorities have imposed a curfew in the Srinagar district of occupied Kashmir amid planned protests by the locals to observe August 5th as the Black Day. The day marks 1 year when India illegally revoked the special status of the valley.
There will be complete restrictions of movement of the public within the territorial limits of the district. Most of the roads and marketplaces have already been sealed, while announcements are being made on loudspeakers asking people to stay indoors. The curbs came into force with immediate effect and will remain in force on the 4th and 5th of August. The Indian authorities had already imposed strict restrictions in the occupied Kashmir, which were increased on Eid al-Adha. Indian troops, paramilitary forces and police personnel have been deployed in strength at several places in the valley to enforce the siege.
Indian occupation forces have murdered 214 Kashmiris since New Delhi revoked Article 370 and stripped the region of its autonomy in August last year. Occupied Kashmir has been under a strict curfew and communications blackout since then. A recent report that revealed that nearly 1,400 people were critically injured due to the use of force by Indian troops in the valley. It said most of the victims were killed in fake encounters during cordon and search operations. It added the troops damaged over 946 houses and disgraced 84 women. The occupation forces arrested 13,680, including elderly women and half a dozen girls during the period. Prime Minister Imran Khan says Pakistan has played an important role in diffusing tensions between arch foes Saudi Arabia and Iran. In an interview, Khan said Pakistan prevented a military confrontation between the two regional powers. He said the confrontation could have been the worst possible scenario for the Middle East. The Prime Minister said Islamabad's mediation between Tehran and Riyadh has not stopped and is making slow but meaningful progress. Talking about Indian atrocities in the occupied Kashmir, Khan said the revocation of Article 370 last year turned the region into an open-air prison. He said within a year, India has destroyed the economy of the valley with its year-long curfew and communication blackout. He also accused Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi of undermining the country's legacy of secularism. Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan says his country attaches great importance to the peace process in Afghanistan. In a telephonic conversation with Afghan President Ashraf Ghani, Khan highlighted Islamabad's positive contribution to the peace process. Pakistan's Prime Minister office said Khan expressed hope that the Doha peace deal will lead to permanent peace in Afghanistan. He also said Pakistan looks forward to the next session of the Afghanistan-Pakistan Action Plan. The office said the two leaders also agreed to strengthen bilateral ties. The Taliban have rejected the Afghan government's accusations that the group violated a 3-day ceasefire during Eid al-Adha. The group's spokesperson Zabiullah Mujahid said Kabul's claims of civilian casualties at the hands of the Taliban are baseless. He said the Taliban didn't violate the truce in any way. Earlier, the Ministry of Interior said the Taliban carried out 38 offences in the past 3 days, killing 20 civilians. It claimed another 60 people were wounded during the violence. Israel has struck multiple Syrian military targets. The Defense Ministry says the raids were in retaliation for an earlier attempted IED attack near the security fence between Syria and Israel. No casualties have been reported so far. Israel's army said its fighter jets attacked helicopters and other warplanes, struck observation posts and intelligence collection systems. Earlier, Syria state media said Israel's helicopters rocketed army positions near Quneitra in the south but caused only material damage. It also said Syrian air defenses thwarted raids near Damascus. There were no comments from Syria on the fence incident. Turkey has denounced a recent statement by Bahrain which criticized remarks made by Turkish Defense Minister Hulusi Akar. Turkey's Defense Ministry said the statement by Bahrain's Foreign Ministry does not reflect the truth. Earlier on Friday, Akar said the United Arab Emirates had committed malicious acts in Syria and Libya. He warned Abu Dhabi will be held accountable at the right place and time. Responding, Bahrain's Foreign Ministry described Akar's statement as hostile and an unacceptable provocation. Turkish Defense Ministry said UAE has made efforts to keep Ankara away from the Arab world. It said Arab people are our friends and our brothers. Latin America, the world's hardest hit region by COVID-19, has crossed 5 million cases with over 200,000 deaths. This comes as Brazil records 561 deaths and over 16,000 cases in the last 24 hours. The global number of COVID-19 cases has crossed 18.1 million, with the death tally exceeding 691,000. More in this report.
Thousands of deaths and hundreds of thousands of new COVID-19 cases continue to devastate the Americas. Brazil remains the virus hotspot with the world's second highest infection rate and death toll. Despite surging amount of cases, President Donald Trump has echoed Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan's take on permanent lockdowns.
It's important for all Americans to recognize that a permanent lockdown is not a viable path toward producing the result that you want, or certainly not a viable path forward, and would ultimately inflict more harm than it would prevent.
In Europe, the once worst-hit Italy's spike in daily cases appears to have slowed down, but Germany has confirmed an increase in cases, reporting 800 infections overnight. Struggling to contain the spread, Australia's Victoria state has announced a fine for anyone breaching the COVID-19 related rules.
You will be door-knocked, you will be visited. If you're not at home, then you will be fined. And the fine, $1,652, but beyond that, the opportunity for police to on-the-spot fine you up to $5,000, and for particularly selfish behaviour, the opportunity to take you to court, where the maximum penalty is in fact $20,000.
In Asia, mainland China has reported a decline in cases, while Hong Kong has reported 78 infections overnight for the first time in almost 2 weeks. South Korea continues to battle the virus with important and locally transmitted cases being reported every day.
The coronavirus pandemic is in a steady decline in Pakistan, with the country reporting 15 deaths and 432 new cases in the past 24 hours. The Health Ministry said the country's death toll stands at 5,999. The ministry said out of over 280,000 cases detected so far, more than 249,000 have recovered from the virus. It said there are now over 25,000 active cases in the country, with 1,013 in critical condition. Sindh remains the worst hit province with over 121,000 infections, while Punjab has over 93,000. In the northern Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province, there are over 34,000 cases, while Balochistan recorded over 11,000 cases. The United Nations says North Korea is continuing with its nuclear weapons program. A UN's confidential report seen by Reuters says Pyongyang's past 6 nuclear tests have likely helped it to develop miniaturized nuclear devices. In 2018, North Korea blew up tunnels at its main nuclear test site, saying it was proof of its commitment to end testing. The report says only tunnel entrances are known to have been destroyed without comprehensive demolition. It said North Korea can rebuild and reinstall infrastructure needed to support a nuclear test within 3 months. North Korea's mission to the UN has not responded to the claim yet. More stories to follow right after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. US President Donald Trump says he is suing Nevada's Governor Steve Sisolak for passing a bill to allow mail-in ballots. In a tweet, Trump said the Democrat governor is using the pandemic for political gains. The president has strongly opposed the mail-in voting for the November election. He said mail-in ballots will lead to fraud and compromise the transparency of the election. While Democrats argue that the postal voting is safer amid the coronavirus pandemic in the country. Well, tensions between Russia and Belarus have escalated over the arrest of 30 people whom the Minsk suspect as Russian mercenaries. Russia says the arrested men were employees of a private security firm who only stayed in Minsk and were on their way to Latin America. Belarus President Alexander Lukashenko has cast doubt on the Russian version, saying the group had other goals. In a statement, Russia's diplomat Kirill Pelentiev said that last destination of the arrested men was one state in Latin American region. Moscow has rejected any connection between the detained men and domestic affairs in Belarus. Hurricane Osayas has made a landfall into the Carolinas with the risks of life-threatening storm surge, flooding, rainfall and tornadoes. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration said the hurricane landed near Ocean Isle Beach, North Carolina. The agency said the storm packed maximum sustained winds of about 137 kilometers per hour off the North Carolina coast. Authorities have issued hurricane warnings for a portion of upper South Carolina and lower North Carolina coasts of Myrtle Beach and Wilmington. Oak Island in North Carolina and South's Garden City Beach reported damaged houses and downed trees from a possible tornado. Authorities say the storm will sweep quickly towards the northeast on Wednesday and extended warning all the way up to Maine. French pharmaceutical giant Sanofi is being investigated for manslaughter. Health authorities have accused the firm of not revealing the risks of its epilepsy drug Depakine poses to pregnant women. Health authorities said when mothers-to-be took the drug, they increased the chances of their children having birth defects, autism, and learning difficulties. The investigation will determine whether the pharmaceutical company can be held responsible for the death of 4 babies born between 1990 and 2014. Earlier, a district court ordered Sanofi doctors and state to pay thousands of euros as compensation to families affected by their irresponsible behavior. Sanofi has denied all the allegations and claimed it informed people about the side effects of Depakine. Spain's former king, Juan Carlos, says he has decided to leave the country after his corruption allegations surfaced. The country's Supreme Court opened an investigation into Juan Carlos after he received $100 million for a high-speed rail contract in Saudi Arabia. But Juan Carlos has repeatedly denied commenting on the allegations. The corruption scandals circling the royal family surfaced when Juan Carlos's daughter, Princess Cristina, was accused of tax fraud in 2014. Syrian refugees are working with experts to grow vertical gardens using old mattresses in Zatari refugee camp. The area around the camp is dotting the landscape with a lush green vegetation. More in this report.
In the sprawling desert premises of the Zatari refugee camp, small oases of greenery are now dotting the landscape. Plants and herbs like mint, tomatoes, and cucumbers are thriving despite the infertile land. Thanks to 2 simple elements, water and some old mattresses, refugees are using hydroponic farming to grow vertical gardens.
The project has several goals and positive outcomes to begin with. It allows us to become self-sufficient and it also saves water. And this agricultural project can be implemented in crowded or in small spaces. It's all 100% natural and pure, without chemicals or hormones, so the fruits and vegetables we produce are 100% healthy.
UN experts say the hydroponic system consumes 70 to 80% less water than traditional methods and is especially useful for water-stricken countries. Ahmed Zubi, who lives in the camp with his wife and 6 kids, said he was happy to return to his old career as a farmer.
I love working on this project because I enjoy farming. Spending time among the plants and working with vegetables is different than working in construction. So I enjoy this, especially since the process is technologically advanced and the process is clean. Traditional agriculture is full of mud and sand. This is just water. We come clean and we leave clean.
The Zatari camp is home to nearly 76,000 Syrian refugees, over 40,000 of whom are children. Hundreds of refugees have started their own small gardens after being trained on the hydroponic system.
Stocks in Asia Pacific are trading higher. Strong US manufacturing data and gains in tech stocks help investors to look past broader worries about the pandemic. Australia's ASX 200 surged nearly 2% as retail sales for June rose over 2.5%. Japan's Nikkei 225 gained over 1.5%, while the Topix index advanced almost 2%. South Korea's Kospi also gained more than 1%. Mainland Chinese stocks are trading mixed, with Shanghai Composite fractionally higher, while the Shenzhen component dipping over 0.5%. The Hang Seng index in Hong Kong too edged up close to 1%. Overall, the MSCI Asia ex-Japan index rose by over 1%. And that is all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus Special.